All right, so once again, I didn't really plan this out. We're just going to go ahead and do this and hope everything turns out okay. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. That's just the way it is with art. We're going to continue building the scenery, or we're going to continue building this little page or story about Dixie, where he's baking a pie. He has baked a pie. What I want to do is build Dixie's kitchen. I looked again yesterday for Dixie's house, which is somewhere in all my drawings, but I can't find it. So we're just, instead of focusing on Dixie's entire house to lead into his kitchen, we're just going to focus on the kitchen. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. We may or may not do it all. We'll just see what happens in the next 30 to 45 minutes, how far we get. We did get Dixie standing on his rug. This was part of the last video. Why don't we put together his floor? Let's start there. His floor is wood. Now this Dixie is based on someone I knew on Cape Cod, a gentleman named Dixie, and he was gregarious and kind and warm and welcoming, and I really adored him. He is gone. He passed away a few years ago, and his passing was such a big deal on Cape Cod that I heard about it on Boston radio, on Boston Public Radio, and it shocked me and it broke my heart. But he was one of the kindest people I've met and most giving people I've ever met. So that's who this little Dixie is based on. And because Dixie lived on Cape Cod, when I was growing up, of course, and still now, Cape Cod was known as was at one time large in the fishing industry. It still is, but not as much. And a lot of the wood that they had, or in some homes, came from ships. It was repurposed wood from ships. I lived in a home very similar to that, not on Cape Cod, but in New Bedford. It had been built with the remnants of a whaling ship. So I had all these big planks of wood. And now Dixie, the real life Dixie, lived in Provincetown at the very tip of the Cape. Cape Cod is shaped like an arm. He lived at the tip of the Cape, which was all fishing. So in my imagination, the real life Dixie, and now the fictional Dixie, lives in an old home that was built from an old fishing ship, or an old sailing ship. So he's gonna have large wood plank floors. But we're not gonna, let me see, when we're drawing him, we're gonna draw them at an angle. Instead of just a flat floor with straight lines, we're gonna draw it with kind of perspective, where we're kind of looking at the floor in this direction. Okay? So we're just going to start putting down lines. Like I said, they're not going to be straight, like following the line of the paper. We're going to make them at the at the angle that our imagination would hold them at. So they're going to be large at one end and a little bit smaller on the other. Again, I didn't plan this out, so we'll see how it goes. You see, they're getting a little bit smaller up top. And if you also notice, I'm not measuring this. I'm not worried about the width of the lines. I'm not worried about whether they're straight. That's not my bother. Let's see how it works. Well, that'll be interesting when it's done, and that's what we want. It's really interesting stuff. Okay. All right, why don't we just start with these lines? Okay, let me show you again. They go from large. I apologize for the light. I'm actually sitting in the sunroom of my place, and it just doesn't seem like I have enough light. So I'm making up for it with lamps. with my inexpensive lamps. So those are the lines. They're thicker here, they get smaller to here. Okay. Let's draw them in with pen. Again, I have my fancy pens, my favorite brush pen. You may be using Sharpie. I, in fact, right now don't have any Sharpies that have any ink left, so I'm going to stick with my fancy pens. Otherwise, I'd have a Sharpie and we could all be working with the same materials. And there go my lines again. In some spaces they're skinny, in others they're fat. Sometimes I skip the line, I stop and I just skip, like right there. Don't worry about it. I just don't. When I was in high school, well, when I was in grade school, I wanted to be an architect. And when I got to high school, it was something I dreamt about a lot. And when I got in high school, I was the first girl in my school district to take drafting. And in drafting, which is the class you have to take before you can even begin to think about taking architectural classes, you have to write perfectly, your printing has to be perfect, your lines have to be perfect. Everything had to be straight because we weren't working with computers then. And I loved it, but I'm not a machine, neither are you, so we don't have to be perfect at this. This, we can make squiggly lines, we can have all kinds of types of lines. Right, there it is. There's the beginning of his floor. Now, because the lines are kind of wonky, and they're in perspective, we're going to draw the planks of wood or sections of wood at an angle too. I'm just putting down some lines and then I'll show you. I know this is confusing, how they're drawn out. But we're not going to worry about it. This is a fun project. So you see the 4 lines that I've made? You can make the same lines. You can make 5 lines. You can make 6, 7. You can make 3. It doesn't matter. See? But I have them at an angle of the paper as well. That tells us when we're looking at it that we're looking at a floor with perspective and at an angle. Okay? Just trust me on this. We're actually going to make more lines. We'll do the next set in a minute. What we're going to do is start erasing some of these, because the planks of wood are not going to be set in the floor like that. Plank of wood, 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 etc. They're going to be varied. Okay? Just trust me on this. Erase the lines in this. Leave the lines in the first set. Erase the lines in the second set. Okay? Leave the lines in the third set. Erase the lines in the fourth set. You see? See what I'm doing? Leave the lines in the 5th set. Erase the lines in the 6th set. And you're just going to continue to do that, so that every other set has no lines in it. None of our original lines anyway, because we're going to draw new ones. Oops. Okay? Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and draw another set of lines. And they're going to be perpendicular to the first set that we made. I hope this is making sense. If not, just turn the volume down and just do what I do, okay? Okay. So now what we're going to do, you see how I drew new lines? We're going to go ahead and erase them in some places, like here. So now we've got a plank of wood and a plank of wood. We'll erase, where are we going? This one and this one. Okay, so we've got a plank of wood, a plank of wood, plank of wood, plank of wood. You see? So that the planks of wood vary. Let's go ahead and erase this line. Whoop, no, wait. No, we're leaving that line. We're going to go ahead and erase that line. We're going to skip this one and erase that line. Okay? Let's jump ahead. We already erased that line. This is confusing, I know. We already erased that line and that line. We're going to skip this line, go ahead and erase that line. Now we'll go ahead and we'll skip this and erase that. Okay, you see? We're going to jump ahead. This is one of the new lines we made. We're going to erase this line, skip that plank of wood, erase this line, skip that plank of wood, erase this line, skip that plank of wood, erase this line. Now I'm going down to my last new line. I'm going to erase this one. I'm going to skip this and erase this one. Skip this and erase this one. God, I hope this is clear. Skip this line and erase that one. Okay? So when we get done, the floor should look like that, like bricks, like drawing a brick wall. Now we'll go ahead and ink in what's left. Again, my fancy pen, my very fancy pen. And these lines can meet or they don't have to. It does not matter. Skip up to this line. You see how this is going? There's one whole plank of wood there. There's one whole plank of wood there because of the lines we made. We're going to skip up here. Okay. We're just going to continue. There we go. Now hopefully this will work in his house. And that was not for naught. Not for nothings. But now Dixie's got a floor. if this is too difficult to do the perspective, then just do the best you can. Draw your lines along, following the paper, the line of the paper. Right. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. All right, since he was baking with a stove to make the pie, let's go ahead and draw the stove. And the stove, again, like every other shape, is just going to be a combination of rectangles and squares and circles and triangles. There's one line. Again, I'm not measuring it. It's going to be okay. However this works out will be fine. So we've got an, oh sorry, I apologize. So we've got one line going down this way. Then we've got a rectangle, but I've got it at a little bit of an angle coming down. See the top of the paper? A little bit of an angle going down. Then on the bottom, for the bottom part of the stove, the part that sits on the floor, it's going to be just like this one, a little bit of an angle. Then we've got a line here. This is the side of the stove. We're going to draw the front of the stove. The front of the stove is a square too, but it's at an angle. Like this is coming down like this. The front of the stove is coming up a little bit. So when it's sitting on the floor, hopefully it works. Okay, hopefully it works. We'll see. Let's just keep going. Anyway, a little bit of an angle, a little bit of an angle. Top of the stove, another line right across, like that. Okay? And then for the other side of the stove, just like that. Now the back of the stove, pardon me, it's going to come up, and we're going to draw a line that's perpendicular to this line. Okay? There we are. Now there's a piece on the stove that kind of comes out a little bit, and it shows us what time it is and what temperature the stove is. And on some stoves, it's angled up like this. This is what we're going to draw here. So we've got another line coming down this way. This is actually more of a, almost a triangle. But it'll come down like this. We've got another line that mirrors that right over there. We've got the top of it, a straight line like this, which mirrors that line, which mirrors that line. And then another line right here, same angle. Okay, and now we're going to draw our rectangle right there. Take your eraser, take that out. Then let's put in the little box where the time and temperature would show up. Okay. We're going to draw the door of the stove. That's where Dixie puts his pie in to bake. That's where it would open up. Let's give it a handle so Dixie can open it. There's a handle. This will be clearer in a second. Above the opening, because Dixie likes to cook on gas stoves, the knobs are down here. Gas stoves are different from electric. These help the gas go in. There's a pilot light. There's something that goes click, 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 and it sparks a fire, which will light up under these little metal, wrought iron metal doodads that help hold the pans up. So we're going to draw these. And these are like, let's do this. They're like an X. The fire would come out under them, but those are like an X. But we got to give them little arms so they come down. So it can sit on the stove. Again, this will be clearer in a second, okay? But there's our stove. Rectangles, triangles, squares. That's it. I'm going to start with the first line I made, the back of the stove. And I'm going to go down the side, just so the lines are all similar. Okay. We won't get to that detail yet. Now I'm going to do the bottom. Bottom. Okay. Close in the side. And the side. I'm going to close the front box. There it is. I'm going to do the top of the stove, the range, it's called, I think. Anywhere. It's where the timer would be, and sometimes that's where there's like an air filter to pull any smoke out. There's our rectangle. Okay. There's our knobs. That turn on the gas. They ignite a little fire so Dixie can cook. There's where the opening of the stove would be. There's the handle. Now, this might be easier now that I'm doing it in pen. For the, actually the range is the top of the stove. Whoop, I forgot that. And I forgot that side piece. There we go. Okay. Notice it's not perfect, it's wonky, and it's okay. So for these little doodads that I can't remember the name of, we're just going to draw these weird little X's. Notice they don't really look like X's, but they kind of do, but they kind of don't. That's perspective, like on the floor. Where they're short on one side. They're a little bit shorter on one side than on the other. Okay, so we've got our little X's. Now we're going to give our little X's little legs. Not all four of them, because we're not going to see all four of them. Just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that's what would hold our pans up if we were cooking. There. You get a stove. I tell you what, when the door opens, there's a hinge. There has to be a way for the door to actually open. So we're going to draw another line right there. And that's where the hinge would be for the door to be able to open. There would also be other lines down the side, but we're keeping this as simple as possible. Okay. I'm going to take my fine pen now, and I'm going to do a little bit more detail. I'm going to darken in this part of the stove where the time of the temperature would be, but I'm going to do it like we did Dixie's eyes, or the other character's eyes. Just some lines. That's all it needs. That's it. Just a few lines. I think I want to add some here too. I don't know why. I just want to. Okay. Normally I would add circles down here, but I think it's going to get too complicated, so we're not going to worry about that. since we got this done, let's cut it out. I'm just going to erase a little bit. You don't have to. That's about a half hour. And again, I'm leaving space around the stove when I cut, leaving white space, the paper. I'm not cutting right on the black line. I'm not cutting right on the black line. They're not perfectly straight because I'm not a computer, I'm a person, and things don't need to be perfect. There we go. Oh, it's windy out. Where's our stove? Well, that is really trippy. And I'm not sure how the stove is going to stand up because I didn't really think this all the way through. Let me see. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Let's cut out the floor. What we're going to do is take and cut along those lines. Again, not right on the line, just along them. And we can leave it like this. So let's cut off that corner at the end. Okay? Let's see how that works. Let's see how this does. Oh. That's kind of, what I did was I just bent that. I want to see, I just wanted to see how that would be. If I set it like this, then the stove is sitting on the paper. But it is kind of fun. It's actually pretty fun. It's a little weird, a little wonky, but it's fun. Let's get a piece of scrap paper and roll up. Make that little stove stand up. Maybe I shouldn't have drawn it at such an angle, but it's okay. This is how you learn, you experiment. So I've just cut a random piece of paper in a random size using my scrap paper so I'm not wasting anything. This is the back side of it, which has information on it. I don't need any more. Whoop, a little glue stick. And I'm applying, whoop, my poor glue stick. Okay, I'm rolling up my paper. I've got a glop of glue on it. Now, because I do happen to have a roll of tape in the house, I'm going to take a piece of tape and tape it on. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. We'll see. Oop. I want to make sure that it can stand up. That's it. Oops. Nope, not exactly. So I'm going to make another one. Learning curve. That's what they call it. It's okay if things aren't perfect. Don't work out the first time or the second time or the third time. It's okay. Okay, let's see how this little roll does. This will hold up the stove on our wonky floor. on a wonky floor. There we go. So I just had to make it a little bit wider and a little bit taller. See? That's all. You just keep trying until it works. Alright, so let's see. We've got our wonky floor, we've got our wonky stove, and we've got Dixie dancing around the kitchen. What you can't see is that my drawing desk is at an angle too, so that doesn't help. Everything keeps falling over. Where's my tape? I'm going to tape Dixie. Oh no, I can't tape Dixie. Hold on. I'm going to put a little bit of glue down. Yeah, so what you can't see is my drawing desk is at a slight angle. So Dixie keeps tipping over. There we go. Look. So we got part of a kitchen. You know what? I think I am going to cut this floor though. Let's see about that. I'm going to cut somewhere along those lines, or perpendicular to those lines. Perpendicular. That looks a little bit more interesting now. Less unwieldy. What's that? How much fun is that right now? Let's see, do we need to make anything else? I'm not sure with the size of the floor I gave Dixie. It's got enough room for a refrigerator, which should be here. You know what? Let's find out. Refrigerator's not going to be that hard. It's just a rectangle. Get the scrap paper. Let's see, what else do I there we go. I have another piece of scrap paper. Yep. Not going to be that hard at all. Let me cut some of the excess off. Okay, so this is going to be basically rectangles. Well, it's a rectangle, but we're going to do this. There's the back line of the fridge. There's the line that will indicate the front of the refrigerator. There's another line that indicates the front of the refrigerator, or the other side of the refrigerator. So we've got the back, the right side, the left side. It's going to be skinny. Let me start with another piece of paper. I was trying to, I shouldn't have rolled that up. Oh, shoot. I just wasted a good piece of scrap paper. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. That line indicates the back of the refrigerator. That's the right side of the refrigerator. Let's just check. Again, we're not measuring because we don't care. Oops, sorry, stove. I'm going to make it a little wide. Wider than the last one I made. Not measuring, just doing. So we get 3 lines. Just see how the refrigerator feels. It doesn't have to be exact. This is playtime. This is just goofing around. It's a little stove. Now, like the little stove, we want this to feel like it's at an angle. So we're going to see how the line there kind of angles down? We're going to angle that down. That line angles up, we're going to angle up. Okay. Just like that. Now, this is up to you. You can have a short fridge, you can have a tall fridge, it's up to you how big or small it is. I'm going to make it about that tall. But I had this line going up, and so it looked like it was pointy. That's what I was correcting. Oops, sorry, Dix. Dixie. Hello, Dixie. Why, hello. Okay, now this top line, like we angled that one up, this one we're going to have perpendicular again, or mirroring that top line, because this is going to come up, but we don't, it's hard to explain, but we don't want that one going up that way, the same angle, or down. We're going to do it perpendicular. It's hard to explain why. That's what we're going to do. Now this line came pointed in this direction, pointed kind of upwards a little bit, making a nice triangle there. We're going to point that one down just a little bit, and you'll see why. Okay. It'll make more sense when we're done. Now, most refrigerators have a top and a bottom. Has a freezer, section and a refrigerator section. And actually that line that I just made for the freezer section, that's absolutely incorrect. Not the end of the world, but not correct. This line is mirroring that line. It's straight like that one, straight there. This line has to go in between straight, straight, and at an angle. So we're just going to come down a little bit. I'm going to grab my second pencil so you can see. Okay. So it's at a little bit of an angle. It feels weird when you're looking at it. If it feels weird, then it's probably right. And now we're going to add, that's funny, I put the doors for Dixie's fridge, the handles for Dixie's fridge in the picture on the opposite side of the ones on my fridge. I wonder why. Oh, I know why. Okay, never mind. Trying to remember, how did it go in the last house? Well, in the last house, the door handles were on the other side. So we're going to draw them on this side, closest to us. Door handle to the fridge and door handle to the fridge. Again, rectangles again. Just two thin rectangles. Okay. Now we're going to draw this in. Let's start where we started at the beginning. The back of the fridge, the side of the fridge. You might want to leave a little space there, because that's where the fridge and the freezer would open. The doors would open. The side of the fridge again. Okay. We're going to do the bottom of the side of the fridge, the bottom of the front of the fridge. Okay. The top of the side of the fridge, and the top of the front of the fridge. Ready? And you can do one line for the freezer and another line for the refrigerator bottom, which is, I think I'm going to do that. So I got two lines. And now the handles. And they really don't need to be anything more than that. It's that easy. I kind of rounded the top of the rectangles a little bit with my pen. That's about it. All right, let's cut this little doodad out. Again, leaving space between the line. Whoops. Leaving white space. Not cutting right on the black line. And we've got a refrigerator. Now we're going to make a little roll up. You can use let me see, an old toilet paper roll and glue it on. Actually, that would work really well. Or you can do what we've been doing. Yeah, you can use an old toilet paper roll, glue or tape it on. Or you can do what we've been doing, which is taking scrap paper and making the rolls yourself. This one has to be a little bit big. Not measuring, just doing. So it's playing, so it doesn't have to be exact. Just cut a piece of paper, make sure that it's big and heavy enough for the back of the fridge. Put some glue on it. The glue's right there. Roll it up. And you know what? If it's not right, you just redo it. Try another size. Okay, and again, because I have tape, I'm going to tape this guy on. Okay? If you don't have tape, use your glue. Again, just use what you have. I don't like games and toys where you have to spend more and more money just to make it work. It's mean. We use what we have in Scootertown. We make do and we share kindnesses. And we try and get our refrigerators to stand up. My refrigerator won't stand up. Here we go. Now it is. Okay, let's see how this does on our wonky floor. Come on, refrigerator. With our wonky stove. Oh my God, this is so much fun. When I was little, I didn't do things like this, but I did do things like this. I loved Bugs Bunny cartoons more than anything in the world. I loved them. And in Bugs Bunny cartoons, they did illustrations. Their cartoons were not drawn on computer. They were drawn by hand. So everything was just layer upon layer of people drawing and painting and placed on top of each other. And so, although I didn't know how to do it then, I've done illustrations now that are very similar. And it's super fun. This kind of reminds me of being a kid, though, and trying to figure that out. How did those grown-ups, how did those people do it? How did they do it? But we had to do, we had games, but I really liked being alone, and I loved drawing and painting and doing things alone. And building things all by myself, using what I had, and that's where this kind of comes from. Of course, now I'm a grown-up and I'm still doing it. Whoops! I have to admit, this is way more fun though. This is way more fun than what I used to do. Because I'm not worried about perfection. This is perfection to me. And the ridiculousness and the fun of it. Look at, we've got Dixie in the kitchen. We've got Dixie in the kitchen. Yay! All right. I hope you had a blast with that. Please, if you can, let me know how you make out. I'd love to see. Oh my God, look at this. How crazy is that? It really does look like a wacky Bugs Bunny cartoon. Maybe I shouldn't have done the floor at an angle. Maybe we should have done it along the paper. Having the lines run perpendicular with the edges of the paper, but I don't care. It makes me happy. Now I'm thinking about what kind of stories with Dixie. This is so silly. This is so ridiculous. It's awesome. All right. Oh, I can't wait for our next project. Now I cannot wait. And I've got several things in mind that we're going to do. All right. There we are. There we are. I got to go potty. Ciao. Ciao.